Hello, I'm Kent Barker. Welcome to Telco 2.0's second industry brainstorm. The theme today is how to make money in an IP-based world. And given that telecom and mobile are among the worst performing sectors in almost any stock market, that's clearly quite a challenge. So what solutions are being suggested? Let's find out.
It's really about helping telcos understand how they can grow their business in an increasingly IP-based world. That's really their biggest challenge at the moment, and so we're gathering a large group of people to debate that issue.
Who's here to do the brainstorming?
Well, any good brainstorm needs the right people in the room. So we've got people from the big telcos in Europe, we've got people from small start-up telcos, we've got people from the media companies, the internet players, and some of the IT companies who either partner or sell stuff to the telcos. Often telco events just focus on what telcos do. Here we're looking at what do the end users want. So we've divided it into 4 sections. One looking at digital youth, what they need from telcos.
We've really been exploring the differences between our generation, the wrinklies, and the kind of emerging generation that have really grown up and been weaned on digital handsets in the internet world, and the way they communicate, the way they behave.
One looking at digital town.
One of our speakers showed a video of people in Leunen, in a small Dutch town. What services do you like out of this network? And they were looking for things like be able to access their GP and healthcare. So it's not necessarily video content and entertainment content and what the telcos see as being the market. It can be very localised services built on top of these open networks for these different communities.
One looking at digital workers.
The role of employees and the individual within the context of a work environment in terms of increasing mobility, both in terms of their physical location, they might be working at home, might be working on the road, but also looking at things like career as well, and the mobility of people don't stay in the same company for their entire life, as perhaps would have been the case in the past. And looking at what this means in terms of communications, both in terms of devices, but also in terms of obviously the services which operators can provide either to the individuals or to the corporations.
And one looking at the digital home. Well, the frustration is normally to do with things not being linked together and integrated effectively. So you have music, you have video, you have TV, you have other files on all kinds of different devices which aren't interconnected.
Even with the event clearly split into themes, the same issues kept coming up, despite the different sessions that speakers had participated in. It was quite clear that the future for telcos is a challenging one, with some believing it's time to bite the bullet of restructuring, and others looking forward to a more positive challenge. But as ever, it all comes down to money.
We've got some representatives of what I would call the largest global cartel that mankind has ever known, and they're sort of scratching their heads and saying, how do we cope with the future? And it's like, dinosaurs trying to think about how to cope with the ice age.
The vision of the change is certain. The time frame of the change is less certain. So that some people try to avoid thinking of it and think, oh, it's not going to happen before 10 years, or it's going to happen only for a niche of my users, like 15%. Some others are, I would say, maybe more long-term oriented or have a more risky approach or want to be leading the change.
It's probably the first time since almost the Industrial Revolution that the interests of telco shareholders and the interests of their management are opposed. Because the best thing that the telco could do is to say, let's sell off our assets while there's some worth to them and hand the money back to the shareholders. But obviously the management said, gosh, if we do that, we're out of a job. So the management are constantly trying to find some means of slowly migrating. We hear of words like next generation and evolution. No. Next genus.
I believe the revenue is more or less either stable or a bit degrading, but it's the content of the revenue which is changing, and you'd better, as I mentioned, surf on the wave of what's changing rather than try to protect and hold back and just be eroded by the others.
If I was a telco, I would very strongly look at basically the 3 strands of the business I've got. I've got some physical infrastructure. Right, I should sell that off into new separately financed entities, the session I'm in, There's the middle one of managing that, lighting that infrastructure. That's an interesting business, up for grabs. And then there's a plethora of services and applications on the top level. Well, anybody, any 14-year-old kid in their bedroom can do as well as BT can on that level. So I think it's, make your mind up time. And I think we're going to see a meltdown in the capital markets on the valuation of telcos as we know it.
If you think we've had disruption until now, you don't know what's going to hit you, because our customers are converged. They no longer make a distinction between offline and online. They no longer are concerned about walled gardens. You put up any barriers to them, they will knock them down. So we're going to have to learn, how do you cope with that kind of a customer in the future? Indeed, how are you going to make money out of a customer like that?
Anybody that looks at this multi-billion-dollar industry and thinks that it's going to go away or it's going to go into serious decline, have another thing coming. I just don't think that, particularly in Europe, where the telcos are a major part of the ecosystem, that's going to happen. On the other hand, I also see some very innovative thinking coming out of the R&D departments, the business development departments, the executive conversations. So no, I'm much more optimistic that the future is opening up in a very positive way.
Users don't care what technical infrastructure is used to deliver. So I feel the argument over open or closed architectures is largely sterile, because actually what we really need is to see a way of modernising the infrastructure that delivers the kinds of high bandwidth services that we can't do over asymmetric networks. And so I think, if you like, that argument is at too low a level. We really need to look at how the industry is restructuring to take advantage of new service opportunities, and I think they're being a bit too slow.
What telcos have to do is that when they start with a service, a solution, a technical solution, really then they have a problem of massive geographical deployment. So of course, being more infrastructure based than pure service providers seems to move slower, but I think if you look at the history of how DSL is spreading out GSM and then UMTS and the HSDPA is coming, it's not really that we are moving so slow.
With certain exceptions, telco management generally is not particularly strong at the sort of restructuring and re-engineering that we're required to modernise their businesses, and that's why you're seeing the kinds of service innovation being done by the Googles and the eBays. Sort of the YouTube is, everybody mentions YouTube, of course. You're seeing new services coming out of the internet people rather than the telcos.
So where is the young blood? These internet people designing our future. They were at the Telco 2.0 event, of course, preaching a lesson or two to the old guard. So listen carefully now. The future may well be in their hands.
Some of these telcos have got 100 million customers, and so I don't think you can write off lightly an organisation with that level of user base. The issue is how they figure out where they want to play in this value chain going forwards.
Effectively, the operators have been a ceiling to innovation within the mobile space, and effectively they need to start embracing these more Web 2.0 type ideas and becoming more of a platform, and with that they will see a marketplace grow and they will benefit in revenue from that marketplace's growth.
There are hundreds and hundreds of smaller organisations like ourselves doing innovative things that customers want, which sit really well within these operators' portfolios, and what the operators need to do is to sort of open up and start working with us.
Concrete solutions there may not be, but ideas aplenty have flowed from this 3-day brainstorm. How many will be taken up by the industry will only become apparent, though, in the months and years that follow. Kent Barker for Telecom TV at the Tower.